It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hey friends, this is Andy. This episode of Accelerate is brought to you by Kitedesk. Kitedesk is the all-in-one sales development platform that lets you manage all of your sales development activities, such as email, direct dial phone calls, and your daily to-dos, all in one place to open up conversations, book more qualified meetings, and really create predictable pipeline.
Kitedesk Flow and Kitedesk Find allows us to find exactly the right people in the industries we're looking for, in the roles that we're looking for.
That's Kitedesk customer Michael Orphis. Michael is head of sales at Stratified. In addition to the all-in-one management of his sales development team's days, Kitedesk helps him with another big part of his job.
We have the ability with Kitedesk to do what we call targeted campaigns. Our conversion rate from what we were doing in the past to what we're doing now has been really massive.
So you don't have to take tons of time to research, prospect, then blast large lists of people that never turn into sales opportunities.
We're seeing higher clicks, we're seeing higher open rates, and without question, we've seen a massive increase in pipeline generation.
So, to learn more about Kitedesk, schedule a free demo, and learn how to create predictable pipeline at your sales organization, go to kitedesk.com/accelerate. That's KITEDESK.com/accelerate. Hello, and welcome to Accelerate. Joining me today is Jeremy Reeves. He's the CEO of Kaizen Marketing and host of a sales podcast, or a pop marketing and sales podcast called Sales Funnel Mastery. Jeremy, welcome to Accelerate.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So take a minute, introduce yourself, and tell us how you got your start in sales and in business and marketing.
Definitely. Yeah. So I have sold a lot of stuff. I basically do it maybe a little bit different than most people. I sell only with words, right? So I mean, I sell new clients on the phone, that kind of thing. But primarily, I'm what you would call a sales copywriter, right? So essentially, instead of selling someone over the phone or in person, where you actually get to communicate with them one-on-one, you can ask them questions, and which I'm sure most people here know is the best way to make a sale, is by asking questions and then responding to their questions with basically a pitch. I do that through words. Right. I do it through like on websites and through emails and through webinars and through things like that, where we kind of have to anticipate the questions that they might have, anticipate the objections that they have, and overcome them without being able to talk to them. So it's quite a challenge, as you might imagine. But I've been doing it since 2008, and since then have helped my clients generate roughly $50 million in results. In all kinds of different industries, everything from, selling physical products. Like right now I'm working with a company, and they have this beauty mask that you put over your face. So everything from things like that.
I'm sure I could use that.
Yeah. Everybody could. It actually works really, really well.
So you've tried it?
Yeah, I have.
And are you more beautiful as a result?
Yeah, you know what? It's actually funny. I had this huge cut on my nose, right at like the kind of crown of my nose, because I was standing up and I stood up into the corner of like a shelf, and it just ripped all the skin off my nose. It looked beautiful for a couple weeks, but so I had this like really red. It like stayed really red when the scar went away for a couple weeks, and I actually wore this thing twice, and it went away in like 3 days. It was crazy. Huh. And now it's, like you have to really look at it to see if it's like red or not. Right. I haven't used it in like 2 weeks. But yeah, so everything from that, I mean, we've sold a whole bunch of stuff in the health industry, supplements and weight loss programs, a lot of high ticket items, mostly through webinars. It's typically the best way to do those. Everything.
So high ticket like?
Yeah, everybody kind of thinks different numbers with that, but I typically go anything from like $500 plus. So if you're selling like a product, like an information product or some type of physical product, $500 plus. If you're selling a service, a lot of times they can go up into the tens of thousands. And they typically start with some type of strategy session or consultation or discovery call. Which is essentially the same thing, just different verbiage. So they're typically the best way to maximize your sales from those. There's just, so many different industries. It's hard to even imagine.
Let's talk about something a little more complex than this. So the complex B2B sale.
Mm-hmm.
You've described a lot of things that are sort of transactional, let's say, but increasingly, obviously, with the power and the impact of the internet and so on, is there's this vision I know that some people have that, gosh, we're going to be able to get rid of a lot of salespeople because we're going to be able to use, advancements in technology and, copywriting and so on because people are out searching for this information these days, as opposed to waiting for salespeople to call on them.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are you seeing in terms of, people turning to really effective copy to sort of supplant the old face-to-face selling funnel with something that's more virtual?
Sure, that's a good question, and I'm actually a huge fan of as much as I love automation, and that's kind of what I talk about on a daily basis. I'm actually a huge fan of adding salespeople back into the mix. Right. So one of the things that I tell my clients to do is with online sales funnels. We love to automate things, right? And depending on the price point, you can just sell it on, through, if it's $100 or a couple $100 even, or, if it's an information product up to even like $2,000, you can sell it without anybody talking to them. But the thing that I think a lot of people miss is they say, like, even if it's just say $500, right? You can definitely sell something, fairly easily for $500 without anybody talking to them. But are you maximizing the sales? That's what a lot of people miss. And it's like, oh, I'm going to automate this and I don't want to hire salespeople and that kind of thing. But it's like, well, look, you can sell the people, because in any market, there's going to be a percentage of the audience that they're just going to buy. Like if you give them the right pitch, it's the right timing, you have the right offer, you're going to sell them, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's also people that just are never going to buy. They just want free information. They're just never going to buy. And then there's the middle category. Like think of these people as like on the fence, right? They may or may not be able to be pushed over, right? Some of them will eventually buy. A lot of people need just that little bit extra. And what I tell a lot of people is, sell as much as you can without having anybody that talks to them personally. But if you add a salesperson and you get people to, and you call some of the people that haven't bought, and you can overcome their objections on the phone, you're going to make a lot more sales. I actually have one client who they did basically, it was like a 2-step lead generation process. So they sold things for getting kind of like a LegalZoom type of deal, but they're one of their competitors. So, people came and they said, okay, I want to start whatever, an LLC or an S corp or whatever, some type of entity, right? And my clients did that for them, right? And so people would come and it was like, step one, and it was like, first name, last name, email address, and what type of entity you want to form. And then step two was they had to like fill out the name of the entity, their address, all that kind of stuff, and then go through the process. So what they did was they added, people that basically did step one, but didn't do step two. They had a salesman call them. They increased their overall leads by 50% by doing that, right?
Increased qualified opportunities by 50%.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Right. So it's I like to use kind of the automated, the really good sales copy, coming up with the right positioning for the offer, all that kind of stuff. Everything that I do, all the copywriting, selling them as much as we can on print. But I like to, when it's applicable, I like to mix that with actually having a salesman. You know what I mean? And if you're selling something where you have to If people have a lot of questions about it, if it's not like, hey, here's what you get, and it's X amount of dollars, if there's something where people have questions, for, any kind of service really, where you get on the phone, I mean, people have to know how to sell because it makes a difference. I mean, what I do in that case is I can pre-sell them really, really well. I can get them to like 80% of the way, 85, 90% of the way, but they still need those specifics so that you can show them how everything applies to them. How what you're going to be able to help them with is going to solve their specific problem and
help them achieve the outcomes. I think that's really what's missing, right? At that point.
Yep, exactly. And what I do in a lot of cases can get them almost all the way there. But like if you're, figure if you're selling a $10,000 product, it's kind of hard to sell that without actually talking to somebody. Like you're not going to get somebody that goes on your website and makes a $10,000 purchase, without ever talking to somebody. You know what I mean? You can get them most of the way there. You can do a productized service where you even tell them the price, but in most cases, it's going to be really hard to sell that person without actually speaking to them on the phone, So yeah, I mean, I like to mix it.
So your podcast called Sales Funnel Mastery is which talks more specifically about online sales funnels, but is the sales funnel in general, whether online or face-to-face selling, is it becoming obsolete, or at least as we know it today, is it start becoming obsolete?
Yeah, I think as we know it, and not that it's becoming obsolete, I wouldn't say. I think that's a little bit too, harsh, I guess. But it's definitely becoming less impactful, I guess we could say. So I have clients that have a very simple, just hey, you opt in, you get a free report or something, we sell you on the product, and it works. So it does still work. It doesn't work as well as it used to, right? And again, there's no,
and when we say it doesn't work as well as it used to, we're referring to, let's say, in the online senses. Yeah, somebody opts into your list, they're going to get hit with 5 or 6 emails over the period of time that take people through the funnel. And what you're saying is that's really becoming more compressed in many cases.
Yeah. It still works, but definitely not like it used to, when sales funnels became a big thing, 2-3 years ago, things like that. I mean, it was just, you just sent people to a page, got them on a list, and they just bought. You know what I mean? And like anything, kind of a strategy comes out and it works phenomenally well when it first comes out, and
until
then
people abuse it. And,
right. It's kind of the same thing with if you're into like weightlifting, you start, say you're bench pressing 200 pounds. At first you're getting really, really good results because you're pushing your muscles, you're pushing your body, and you get stronger. And then all of a sudden it's not a challenge for your body anymore. And you're not getting as good results. So you have to add something. In that case, you have to add more weight. In the case with sales funnels, really what I'm seeing is that you have to add more relevancy. You have to add more segmentation to be able to talk to your audience in a more specific way. So, for example, let's say that, you're selling something that has to do with health, right? So you can very easily segment your audience and into men or women, in a B2B sense. Maybe it's you segment them based on, the problem that they're having, So maybe some people it's productivity, other people it's lack of sales, or something like that. I mean, the segments would be different for everyone listening to this. But if you can, that's kind of what I'm seeing, is being able to segment people based on, the problem that they're having or the type of person they are, something like that. Because then you're still doing the automation. You're still doing, everything that works really well with the sales funnel is, having the right timing, being able to stay top of mind, being able to build a relationship with them, and all the other things that sales funnels really help you with, right? That can't be done just by having someone look at your website once. But you're able to take that to another level because you can talk to them more specifically. Because if I have 2 people, if I have a service and it fixes, let's just say, and this is kind of just a made up service, but let's just say it fixes the productivity side and the sales side, right? I can talk to people way more specifically about the problems that they're having and how my solution is going to help them solve that problem, right? And give them the outcome that they want. if I'm talking to them specifically about, like, if they're only dealing with the productivity side of things and not the sales, or vice versa, you can really segment and hone in on the frustrations and the desires that your market is having, and then comes in the good copywriting to be able to really hit those pain points and talk to them in an emotional, engaging way, and everything else. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big things. What I'm seeing is
Specialized funnels, basically. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you have multiple funnels where you might have had one before.
Yeah.
So, so a couple of things. One is I just finished reading last week this really interesting book called Absolute Value, and subtitles What Really Influences Customers in the Age of Nearly Perfect Information, and written by a couple, at least one guy's a professor at Stanford, and these guys are heirs to Daniel Kahneman, Emmett Tversky in terms of decision making, and what they're saying is that we're in this world now where people have access to nearly perfect information, that where instead of being overwhelmed, or the sort of the general thought among marketers and salespeople in general is, well, gosh, customers are just inundated with information. They're overwhelmed. They have a hard time making decisions. What these guys have found through their research is really it's 180 degrees opposite. Mm-hmm. That actually all this information, given the fact we have all these tools that enable them to sort through the information, whether it's starting at the top with Google and then working down into discussion groups or chat groups or product reviews on Amazon, so on social media and so on, is that people are actually able to buyers are very adept at sorting through all this information and understanding what they call the absolute value, which is really sort of the utility, if you will, of what the experience is going to be using this product in a way that they've never been before. And so one of their results of their study they find is that sort of traditional tools of influence, i.e. in some cases sales funnels, it could be copywriting, could be offers, brand names, so on, really have lost a lot of influence in the purchasing process these days. Mm-hmm. I found that sort of fascinating. So that's why I sort of motivated this question about the sales funnel being sort of not necessarily becoming obsolete, and maybe that was too harsh of a term, as you said, but how is that really going to change now, where we sort of had this trope we talk about as customers are in control. What they're finding through their research is that, yeah, they really are in control, but in a way that makes it almost seem like, what is the real value of sellers in this environment?
Yeah, and what, and that actually sounds like an interesting book. I should read it. One of the things that I've really seen a huge trend in because they are right, like they have access to so much information, and a lot of people are saying the same things. You can buy, let's just say it's an information product. You can buy 10 different things around the same topic, and 90% of it is going to be saying the same thing, and then everybody has their own little twist on it. One of the things that I've really seen this is really over the last, I would say 1 to 2 years, is building the relationship. You know what I mean? Engagement, being able to bond with your audience and really selling you, people don't want to buy from faceless companies anymore. They want to buy from people with personalities and, that are going through their own struggles. I even know from my own podcast, and I've actually thought about writing a book on this. It's so powerful. One of the biggest and most influential things I've seen in my life is being vulnerable. Right. So I have autoresponders, and, they go out to the customers and all that kind of thing. And I noticed that in probably, I would say at least 70% of the cases where people are writing back to me and saying, oh my God, that was so amazing, or, you helped me, it was valuable, or whatever. In probably at least 70% of the cases, it was a story about me being vulnerable in some way, and then transitioning into a lesson for them. Right. So for one example is my wife has epilepsy. So she has grand mal, and which means basically she loses consciousness.
Okay.
So when she was pregnant with our first child, Connor, he's 5 now. I was in our kitchen in one of our old houses, and I heard her yell. And I've been with her since let's see, it's been 12 years now. So I've witnessed her having, I don't know, probably around maybe 8 seizures or so. She has them like, every 6 months to a year or so. And so I heard her kind of like say my name, and it was just in the, like sometimes you just know,
Sure.
it's just like that gut sense. So I was in the kitchen, I think I was making dinner. I was doing something in there, and I heard her, and I'm like, uh-oh. And I just like no thought, I just started sprinting towards the steps because I could tell it was coming from the top of the steps. So no thought, just started sprinting towards the top of the steps. I got halfway up the steps, and she fell down onto her knees and started falling down the steps. Now, keep in mind, she's 8 months pregnant at this point. So you can imagine, how scary that was. So I caught her on the steps, right? And I think it was one of those like Superman moments,
right?
Because normally, I think very few people would be able to catch somebody, a full weighted person. I mean, she's small. She's she's a small, woman, but still, I mean, yeah, she was pregnant, yeah, and she was falling down the steps, and so you can't really get much like power in your legs, really. And so that happened. So I have a story in there talking about that, and then I transitioned it into a marketing lesson, for my audience. And I forget what the marketing lesson even was, but I would say like I would say of all the emails that people reply to, that one probably gets at least 4 times the amount of replies of any other email. And it's like every time I'm actually like almost tearing up, even saying that story. It's a very emotional story for me. And like in the email, it just, the emotion pours out of it. And so I have a whole bunch of those different stories, and I have kind of a theory. I need to put a name on it, but I have a theory that, when people join your list, think of why you have friends. Think of your friends, right? Think of your friends that you really like. Could be, business associates, colleagues, actual friends, like in your, quote unquote real life, like, in your local area, whatever. There's one of the reasons that people have friends, right, and are attracted to one another, is because they relate to them in some way, right? You have similar interests, you have similar hobbies, whatever you like to do, that kind of thing. And so I actually infuse that into my copy, into the stories that we tell. So I have a bunch of, let's just call them trigger points of things that I want to attract other, my audience that relates to me. So one of them is my wife, that she has epilepsy. Another one is my father passed away from cancer. So anybody who's dealt with that, if I tell stories about, the struggle that I went through with my father having cancer and then passing away from it, anybody who's dealt with that or knows anybody with it is going to instantly bond with me, right? And then, I have a whole bunch of those. I like the Philadelphia Eagles. I like to work out. I like.
Sorry about that Eagle connection.
Oh, I know. Oh my God.
You get a lot of people. That's really being vulnerable right there.
And I also get emails on that too. Oh, I hate the Eagles. I love, whoever, Cowboys usually, something like that. But I have a whole bunch of things like that. And it's about creating that engagement with the audience, and so, that's a really big tip is like, if you're writing emails, you get people on your list. It's not just about what you sell or the problem that you solve. That's a huge part of it, obviously. But people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. Right. So even as salesmen, if you're calling somebody, if it's worth the time to do this, research them. Look up, most people, you can look up their Facebook page and know, at least the cliff notes of their life story in like 30 seconds, so look them up on Facebook. If they're not set to private, you can just look down, see if they have kids, see if they, what hobbies they like, and blah, blah, blah. And then, how you can quickly relate to them, and don't do it in a creepy way, obviously. But if you can do it in a way that's very genuine, you know what I mean? And kind of just natural, I guess is a good way to say it. It just creates a connection that you can't build without being able to do that. And people, like I said, they buy from the other people that they know, like, and trust. If they don't trust you, there's no way they're going to buy from you. So if you can create that bond and that engagement and relationship, whether it's through your emails or through, on a phone call or whatever it is, if you're selling face to face, look around, see what pictures they have in their office. I'm sure a lot of people already know this. See what pictures. Oh yeah, hey, I see your son's in baseball. Mine is too. It's instant bond. So yeah, that's, it just helps, and I think that's kind of that's a huge trend that I see is building a connection and a relationship with your audience.
Well, I think that's one of the things that, and I agree with you. I think this is, we're going through, trends of disruption, if you will, or waves of disruption that happen in terms of how we engage with customers, or how we, I'm going to use engage too often here. But and what we're seeing and what I'm hearing, because again, I interview guests 6 days a week. And one of the common themes is, we're starting to see now sort of the downside of some of this automation is that at the end of the day, we can automate our processes. What's missing is this level of engagement with our prospects. And I think that is something that's, you clear away sort of all the smoke and mirrors about automation, that's really what's left. And you've talked about it in a very relatable way. And I think relatability is really the word that you were looking for, is how do we engage as well? How do we make ourselves relatable to our audiences? And I use that in a plural sense because there are multiple audiences and you have to have multiple stories. And so often you see people sort of try to just do one story, and one story is not enough.
Yeah, one of my products that I'm coming out with in the future, I haven't even started yet, but it's I've actually been getting a lot of people asking me, which is a good sign when your people on your email list are actually asking you to build something to sell them. But I get people all the time saying, hey, oh my God, I can't, I literally wake up in the morning and can't wait to read my email so that I can see what you're going to tell me today. And I get that all the time. And it's because I use stories to add value, and I think that's a really good way of saying it, is using stories to add value to their lives, because you don't just want to tell stories. You don't just want to give good information. You don't just want to talk to them about their problems and the solution you have. You want to kind of combine all those. You have to kind of infuse your stories with value. One of the easy ways of doing that is just simply, you have a story that transitions into value, which transitions into your product. So let me try to do one right off the top of my head.
Sure.
I'm just going to look around my room and see what I have here. So, all right, I have plants, right? And there's some it's a little bit yellow, right? So you could say, hey, I was just looking over, and by the way, I'm literally coming up this off the top of my head, so it's not going to be polished.
So please, on the cards and letters, let's not grade them too harshly.
Yeah. So you could say, hey, I came down to my office this morning and I noticed that one of, I have plants kind of in my office, and I noticed that one of my plants, I actually have a money tree if people know what that is. I have a money tree in the corner of my office, and I noticed that some of the leaves overnight had fallen off and died. And after cleaning them up, I got to thinking that, hey, you know what? Sometimes that happens in your business, and sometimes and then this is kind of the transition into the lesson, right? And again, I'm making this up as I go.
No, it's very good.
And you can say, sometimes, in business, things, quote unquote, fall off and die. Things that they used to work, but if you reanalyze them, you realize that you're wasting a lot of time. You're wasting a lot of energy on things that are already dead on the floor and not providing any more value to your business. And then so that's kind of like the lesson, and you can expand on it a little more. And then you go into the transition into whatever it is that you sell. And in this case, maybe it's a productivity course, and you can say, look, and that's one of the things that I cover. I cover it in module, 6 of the course is looking at your business, looking at whether it's what you're doing on a daily basis, whether it's looking at certain segments of your market and realizing that you're putting a lot of time and energy into serving that part of the market, but it's actually not really contributing to your bottom line. Whereas you might have basically you're focusing on the dead pieces on the ground when you still have a whole plant that's growing and thriving, but rather than focusing on what's healthy and helping you grow, you're focusing on what's dead and old and waste on the floor that you should be throwing away. And you can see kind of the progression of that. You tell the story, tells a little bit about you. People can kind of get an image of what's happening in your office. You transition into the lesson, so it adds value to their life. So you're not just pitching them in every email, and then you also transition that into whatever it is that you're selling,
right.
And it's such a good way. Like if you do that, it's such an easy way to do everything that we've talked about. You increase your sales because, all the various reasons, you're kind of pre-selling them on the product, and you're telling them, first of all, you're telling them that you have the product. A lot of times people don't even know that you have certain products,
exactly.
And you're staying top of mind, you're building that bond, that relationship. I mean, it's such a good way of selling. And the big thing is it doesn't burn your list out. And you get people that say, oh my God, I can't wait to hear your next story of what's going on in your life. And it does take, now, I'm a copywriter. This is what I do every day. Right. You don't, the other big benefit of this is you don't have to be like a trained copywriter. You know what I mean? That story, as you can say, there's nothing magical about that story.
No, anybody can come up with a story like that.
Yeah. And it's just, it takes some time. Like it's, if anybody wants to try this, go ahead and do it and just write story. And then, okay, here's the thing. And then just look around your room. Like that's what I just did. I looked around my room, I saw the plant and started telling the story, not even knowing how it was going to transition. And I love doing that on live shows. And then you just say, okay, well, how does that transition into a lesson? What can that teach me about life or about business or about health or whatever it is that whatever industry you're in. And then, okay, well, how does that transition into my product or my service or, whatever value I'm delivering to the audience? And if you practice that, like in the beginning, it's going to be tough, right? It's going to be harder in the beginning, but once you do it a couple times, that's why I can just look at something,
Well, also if you take it outside the context of, sending to a list and you're saying, okay, we've got a salesperson in the field that's got, certain accounts they talk to, or they're in, inside salesperson, there's certain accounts they talk to. Yeah, they can have a few stories like that they can share around as they can use it multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're a salesman and you're not writing the emails, just think of how to apply what we just went over into, in-person selling. Cause it's really, I'm just selling via email rather than via, face-to-face or phone or whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, it works the same way. The story, the value of the story is the same in either respect. I love the transition that you did there. That's a great way. And oftentimes stories we are always sort of told, or at least the way people are taught increasingly in sales these days is, you tell stories about your existing customers and what they're doing. And, but if they have stories about themselves, because this whole idea, and one of the things that I certainly teach people when I'm working and write about selling is this aspect of vulnerability. I think is really critical in terms of developing that level of engagement that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is people want to see that. People want to hear that. That's how they understand that you're a person as opposed to the robot that visited their office before you. The guy just treats them, as a customer in a niche. They put them in a box and they sell them the same way as they sold everybody else. And there's nothing personal about it.
Yep. Yeah. And with the whole vulnerability thing, one of the biggest things that I think, like the psychological factors happening there, is that especially if you're, salesman, face to face, nobody is comfortable when you're talking to a salesman. Let's just be honest. Nobody they don't wake up and they're like, oh, I can't wait to talk to
Andy today. Right?
I can't wait to be sold today. I mean, nobody wakes up thinking that. Now there are a lot of things you can do to kind of reduce that, but even if you go to a car dealership, that. You know what's going to happen. You know that you're going to eventually talk to a salesman. But then once it actually happens, the consumer kind of clams up. You get nervous. You get I can't wait till this is over. Oh my God, that kind of thing. And what happens is that their red flags are up. they're looking for any excuse to not buy. And when you're vulnerable, right, all of that comes down, and they're like, oh my God, this guy is like, he's really opening up to me. Like this is an actual human. This isn't a salesman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's that engagement.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just, the defenses that people have, the walls that they put up, right, to salesmen, whether it's online or face to face, it's such a good way to bring them down, and if you can do it in a way that you're being vulnerable, and if you could somehow be vulnerable, but it's actually a good thing for selling the product. I don't know if I'll be able to come up with a specific example of that, because I'd probably need a specific product. But if you can do that in a way that think of like, okay, what can I be vulnerable about, right? Say you're selling a car or something. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example.
Yeah, sure. We can go with a car.
Yeah. So I don't know. Say you're selling a car, and something about like if you're selling with safety and what's a good I think Volvo are they known for being safe? Yeah. So like that, and you could say maybe you've been in
a car accident.
Yeah, like maybe your wife was pregnant and you remember, breaking down, like you could say like something about, I was in the car with my wife and, we were driving maybe some other car and, or actually, no, maybe, we were driving Volvo because that's what we drive. So that's a good way of saying, hey, I actually use this product. So we were driving a Volvo, somebody hit us. I knew my wife was pregnant. And while she was there, I was like, oh my God, are you okay? And, I took care of her. And then later that night I went home and I broke down crying because it all hit me later, and you could say like, I just couldn't express my gratitude enough that we were driving a Volvo, that's known for being safe. And I actually looked it up, and what happened was that, the person, I don't know anything about Volvos. they hit the passenger door, and Volvos have this safety feature. Like, do you see how it transitions into it? Think about how much more impactful that is. Selling the benefits and the features through that story, through that vulnerable story, right? Rather than just saying, oh, well, we have these side airbags, and they've heard it 1,000 times. They're like, all right, I don't really care.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things there though too is, and you brought it up with your story about your wife and the stairs, is that we all have stories. The thing is, you just have to look for the stories.
Yeah,
I'm not a big believer in creating stories that haven't really happened to you, because eventually they come across as inauthentic. But if you're just observant about your life, we all have them. Mm-hmm. So, regardless of what we sell, things have happened to us. We're humans that we can relate, that our customers can relate to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Jeremy, we move into the last segment of my show where I've got some standard questions I ask all my guests.
Sure.
And the first one, to put you to the test a little bit, is a hypothetical scenario. Okay. And in this scenario, you've just been hired as the vice president of sales at a company whose sales have stalled out. Time to hit the reset button, get them back on track. So your first week on the job, what 2 things could you do that would have the biggest impact?
Oh, that's easy. So I would look at the stats, who is buying, and I would say I would kind of segment the buyers into people that I call them hyper buyers, right? So people that you come out with a new product, you pitch them on a service, whatever, and they just buy, right? They buy it because of you. Right. So there are people that just whether they just love to buy stuff or it's because they just have such a deep relationship with you. I would first of all, I guess the step one is segment them, find out who they are. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Who are the hyper buyers, or another way of looking at it is who is your what product or service is kind of your hyper product or service. Right. Essentially doing like an 80-20, right? Figure out where 80% of your results are coming from. The next thing is I would call those people on the phone, and I would say I'd have 2 questions for them. Actually, what I would do is call them on the phone, and so this is kind of like a 2-part. This is like 2A and 2B sort of. So again, first one is to segment that to find out either who's spending more money with us or what product or service are they spending more money with us on. Second thing is call the hyper buyers and say, hey, what is it about us that why are you so loyal? I love the fact that you are, but what is it about us that really attracts you to us? Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is I would call people who didn't buy, right? So call people that they were interested. For some reason, they said no. I actually do this myself, both of these actually, and say, hey, what was it about our service? Like, I know you were interested, you needed help with whatever. What caused you to, go to somebody else? And call 5, 10 people, something like that. You can also do this in surveys, right, online if you don't want to call people. But I would recommend doing both. Do a survey to your whole list, but then also call a couple people. You get much, much, much deeper insights when you talk to people on the phone. And I know that because I've done this. I actually did it like a week and a half ago for one of my clients. And so I would do that. And then, so let's just call all that, the first thing. And then the second thing was I would come out with a new product or service based around what they told me, whether that's, whatever it is, or do like a promotion and, there's kind of a lot of things you can do here. Like after you know that information, you can come out with a new product or service with new insights you got. You can go back and revise your selling approach, whether it's online or offline, on your sales pages, in your calling scripts, whatever it is, based on why people did buy and why people didn't buy, so you can overcome the objections and put all the selling points in there, all that kind of thing. You can, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can do more advertising to those exact people, so on Facebook ads, for example, if you find out like, okay, our hyper target market is, men that are 50 to, 60, and they're dealing with these specific issues, and they tend to live in this type of community. They tend to make this type of money. You can go on Facebook and, say, okay, only send ads to people that are, and then all those criteria.
Demographic, right?
Yeah. And then in the ad, you say, hey, are you dealing with this? Are you dealing with this? Are you dealing with this? And then you kind of go into your whole thing. So that's what I would do.
Okay. Good answer. Great answer. All right. So I've got some rapid fire questions that you can give 1-word answers to or elaborate if you wish. First one is, so when you're selling your services, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
You know what? I go after people, one of my best clients are people that know copy, they just don't want to do it. So my thing is, look, when you get this back from me, a lot of my clients, they know what good copy is, you know what I mean? So when they get copy back from me, my main goal is to have as minimal edits as possible, because I've worked with a lot of lower end copywriters. I'm a little bit more on the higher end scale. And I've worked with more, let's just say like newbie copywriters. And I know that just on like my side projects, I have side businesses and things like that. And so I test them out to, see if I should hire them and things like that. Right. And I know one of my biggest frustrations is getting copy and I have to still make a whole bunch of edits. So one of my biggest selling points is, look, when you get my copy, like it's basically good to go. There might be a couple little tweaks you have here or there, but it's like 98, 99% good to go. The only things you might have to change are like, if there's like a factual thing, because sometimes like if I'm telling their story, there might be 1 or 2 things off or whatever. But I really try to nail down like even things like the tone, how they write, before I start writing, we'll actually go and read if they have like a blog, or they have even as something as simple as an About Me page. I'll actually pick up the tone of their writing and try to model that. So that's similar, how aggressive or subtle they are in their copy, things like that. So so it'd be really, it's obviously it's results, that number one. But then the second thing is like just ease. Like when you get it back, it's done.
Okay. All right. So who's your sales role model?
Probably Zig Ziglar. He popped in my head first.
Okay, we'll go with that. That works. So what's one book you recommend every salesperson should read?
I would say every salesperson. Let's see. One of the books I always recommend is How to Get Everything. What's the book? I might have to look it up. It's a Jay Abraham book. I'm going to look it up right now. How to Get Everything. Everything you can out of all you've got. Getting everything you can out of all you've got. Right. And I think it's actually pretty relevant to salespeople. It's not a sales book.
It doesn't need to be a sales book.
Yeah, but it teaches you to think differently, you know, and that's Jay Abraham is probably my biggest influence on the way that I think. I was very lucky that when I got started, he was one of the first people that I kind of heard about. So it was like one of those really early influences, and it just got me to think. You think more strategically rather than thinking transactionally.
Right.
You start to kind of see the whole picture. And I think it's very applicable, even to salesmen. Like I said, it's not a technically a sales book. He's not saying, you know, 16 ways to close and like that kind of thing. But it's just getting you to think differently and to sell, rather than having, you know, a scripted pitch or things like that. It's really just learning how to just reframe the whole conversation. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That sort of thing. So that's what I would say.
All right. Good suggestion. So last question for you then is what music's on your playlist these days?
Music. Let's see. Does it matter what kind?
No, whatever
Or
you
for
listen
what
to.
purpose? Yeah, so I listen to country for kind of everyday listening. My wife and I love to, we go quadding, and you know, we were talking before we started recording. I live in Wyoming, Pennsylvania, so it's a very mountainous kind of place. Lots of woods. The town I live in, there's only 4,000 people. So there's a lot of space, let's say.
Right.
And so we have a quad, and one of our things that we like to do, we have a 3, a 5-year-old, and another boy on the way. So we'll have 3 boys. So we're not doing this now, obviously, but when she's, you know, when she's not pregnant, we, one of the things we like to do is have one of our parents watch the boys, and then we go quadding for the day. We go out and, you know, we go out and behind her brother's house, and there's a whole bunch of quadding trails back there.
Right.
So, you know, go and take a couple beers and take a cigar or two and take some snacks and, you know, hoagies, things like that, and just relax and go out in nature. So we're always listening to country. You know, if we have our boys out
Sure.
in our driveway, we're listening to country. And then for my workout songs, I will listen mostly to Breaking Benjamin.
Right.
They're actually they got started. They're actually a local band, but they, like, you know, they're from this area. I think they're from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and they kind of made it big. It's a little bit more like hard rock type of music. And then anything old. I can't stand the music today, like what you hear on just, you know, the pop, music
So
today.
you like the classics.
I like the older stuff. And I'm a younger guy myself. I'm only 30, and but I can't stand today's music. It's like an abomination to any music that's ever come before it. I actually, if I'm in the car and there's nothing good on the country radio, I actually turn the radio off. I can't even listen to it.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, Jeremy, thanks for joining me. So tell folks how they can find out more about you.
Definitely. Yeah. So if you resonate with, you know, what I talked about today, you know, I would say there's 2 ways of getting in touch. The first one is listen to my podcast, right? So if you like listening to podcasts, then you're probably on your phone right now, and just go, you know, whatever player you're listening to, just go in and search Sales Funnel Mastery, and I should come up. Even if you just type in Sales Funnel, I'm sure I come up. And so that's number one. And you can get on my podcast. I think we're up to, I don't know, it's like 65 episodes, something like that. And, you know, very similar type of things that we talk about. I do half and half. I think the first like 30 episodes were just me talking, and now the last 30 is kind of like a mix between me and having guests. And then the second thing is, if you want to get in touch, my website is jeremyreeves.com. So if you need help, you know, putting together a sales funnel, rewriting some of the copy that you have, things like that. If you sell anything high ticket, definitely get in touch about doing a webinar. That's one of the areas that we specialize in, selling high ticket items, and you know, everything that we talked about kind of goes into that. You know, so it's a very unique process for. Webinars are a very good way to build a relationship very, very quickly. You know,
Okay.
you know, people build or sell, you know, $10,000 programs within 24, 48 hours of someone hearing of them. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
it's kind of amazing. So yeah, those are a couple different ways that you can get in touch, and hope you know, enjoyed everything that we talked about.
Excellent. Excellent. Again, thanks again, Jeremy. And remember, friends, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And one easy way to do that is take a minute, subscribe to this podcast, Accelerate. That way you won't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Jeremy Reeves, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.